Good morning, everyone. I'm Yannis Koliousis, and we are eventually on our last session of this module. Welcome. I know that you're all trying to finish things up, to finish all the other commitments so that you can read tomorrow. So we will try to be as swift and as quick as possible today, so that we can let you and give you time to prepare yourselves. Now, can you all hear me? Or are there any problems with your connection? Okay, great. So this session today refers to crisis management. We will be talking about crisis, what is a crisis, what crisis management is, what are some effective ways of handling crisis, and all of this will be monitored, centered on, well, try to center them on examples from our experience from the shipping operations and from the shipping value chain, from the shipping supply chain. With regards, of course, to LNG operations and LNG related emergencies. So, said that, some definitions in the beginning of this module, introduction to crisis and crisis management, and some practical examples will be the themes of today's lecture. Again, if you have any issues whatsoever, you can either raise your hand or you can write on the chat over here. So let's start. We're gonna have cover some issues now. Definitions. So first of all, a bit of wisdom, a pearl of wisdom. Crisis happens more often than we imagine or than we are aware of. The only thing is that in most of the times we only experience what directly affects our own lives. So there are a lot of crises out there, let it be personal, professional, on grounds of medical issues, of business issues, pretty much everything. However, we only see uh, those aspects or those issues that we care for, that we want to see, and we sort of disregard all of the rest. So there are a lot of things out there that we should be careful and we should be prepared for. But what is a crisis? How should we define a crisis? What is a crisis? Why is it different from all of the rest of the issues that we discussed so far, like risks or emergencies or anything similar to that? So, crisis, a definition, a more formal definition of crisis, is an event that, by its nature or by its consequences, first of all, constitutes a threat to a vital national interests or to essential needs of a population or of a business, of a commercial entity, of a commercial undertaking. It prompts and asks for a rapid decision making, so you have to take decisions quite swiftly, quite in no time, and demands coordination between different departments, different organisms, and different people, and different groups and different task forces. So it needs a lot of people to work together so that they can have a good result in terms of amending all the issues that have come up with this crisis, with this event. Now, crisis is anything actually that has potential to significantly impact an organization. So when we speak about crisis, when we discuss about crisis, is anything that can make or break an organization. A huge issue, a huge event that can deteriorate the value that the company has, or can deteriorate the assets that the company uses to produce value, or any other issue, any other similar issue. Some more practical examples about what crises are, we're going to be discussing towards the end of this presentation. This is more of a formal definition. However, we need to have a more working definition, something easier, so that we can all understand and be on the same page with regards to what crisis is. So, at the end of the day, everyone has a different definition of crisis. Well, you can easily understand that by saying that all of us see crisis all day long. However, we only understand, or we only accept, or we are only aware of some of the rest of the crisis. So it's easily understood that it's a subjective definition. It's a subjective perception. It's a subjective. So it's a subjective perception. Give me a second, guys. Yeah. So yeah, it's a subjective perception based on the level that we are aware of the threat to one or more. Sorry, guys, keeps on breaking the internet connection. Okay. So we said that the crisis is a subjective. The definitions that we're giving are subjective, and they are based on the perception that the threat to one or more of an individual's or organization's basic values or missions, or even visions. It requires a finite time to make decisions and take actions within, and there is a lack of standard operating procedures or inability to implement standard operating procedures to address this situation. So, said that, there is a very low probability of something happening. This is actually closer to what I have in mind when someone brings up this theme, the crisis. For me, crisis is something that has a very, very low probability of happening. However, when it happens, it has a very high impact to the undertaking or to a person, and it has uncertain or ambiguous both causes and effects. You don't really know what happened to produce it, or what the actual effects in their entirety are going to be. And there are differential perceptions among the different groups that address this issue. And of course, there are also differential perceptions on how to best approach this, the solving of this crisis. So, said that, we can discuss about quite many different things of what a crisis is. For example, the recent BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico is a crisis for the company, or the disappearance of the Malaysia Airlines 370 is also a crisis. Events like that are considered or are crises. You have to acknowledge that these things don't really happen every day. However, now that those things happen, there is a very, very high impact of those things. For example, in the case of the airline gone missing, of the airplane gone missing, you have something like 270 families being directly affected, and so many more be indirectly affected. No one really understands or knows or are aware of what really caused it. And of course, there are differential perceptions on how to approach it. I mean, no one really knew, of course, because no one really knew why this happened. No one really knew how to search for these people to organize on a better manner or with a better outcome a search and rescue mission. So all that stuff are a crisis. Similarly, crises are also events or issues like you have a blow off of a corrupt politician on the mainstream media or of a corrupt minister, and the entire cabinet has to take action so as to remedy this crisis, changing the politician or letting the truth shine, or any other similar remedy. So you can see that a crisis has a lot of faces, and you have to be prepared for a crisis beforehand. Actually, now a standard operating procedure, although by definition there is no such thing, but in order for us to prepare ourselves and to understand what's happening out there or what should happen, first of all, we have a very, very simplistic framework that we're going to be using, and actually this is something that is oftentimes used by practitioners. The first task is for everyone to expose weaknesses. There are weaknesses out there. All of the procedures have weaknesses. All of the organizations have weaknesses. The main role of the person responsible for managing crisis is to expose those weaknesses. Again, please do have in mind that crisis management comes hand in hand with risk management. It actually follows risk management. In the context of identifying the risks and trying to prevent those risks, and this is what we've been discussing so far, you identify some events that might happen, and also you also identify how those events are going to affect the company, the entity, or what the effect is going to be, or how this effect is going to be minimized. This is actually what we are dealing with the crisis. We have to expose all the weaknesses that the company or the procedure might have. So in this respect, exposing weaknesses means understand the limitations, the certain limitations that the procedure has. Now, once you have exposed the weaknesses, or we have understood, that's another way of perceiving this, of approaching this. When we discuss about exposing weaknesses, we also mean understanding the limitations that the procedure has and accepting the failure of the procedure. Now, once we understand this, we expose the weakness or accept the failure or so on and so forth, we have to build capabilities, in a sense, trying to minimize the effects once the event has happened. All of these all of these activities are taking place before the crisis happens. So before any crisis comes up, we have to prepare ourselves, we have to be ready for the crisis. Now, during the crisis, we are enacting the capabilities that we have already developed. We enact them and we put them in place. And after the crisis has happened, we redesign the capabilities so as to make them more focused on the specific context. And we also learn about the shadow weaknesses or the weaknesses that were not revealed, or even revealing the true extent of the weaknesses of a company might have. Now, said that, there are four different issues that you have to address. The first of all, and these are the issues that are this approach is based on. First thing is you have to understand the crisis types, the different types of crises that are emerging. You also have to understand the different crisis mechanisms. What really boosts or lets the crisis out. The different crisis systems that are produced, and the crisis stakeholders. So, by the way, one thing is enacting, and the other thing is reacting. And this comes with preparation. Reacting, of course, you all know or understand that comes tacitly. Something happens and everyone is fooling around or running around to make things up or amend things. Enacting is actually having specific and explicit procedures and explicitly trying to amend, trying to undertake the activities so as to make things better after a crisis that has happened. And enacting is is equal to being proactive, and this is why we have to set up a system so that we can more effectively or more efficiently, or both, try to be proactive and make things up. Now, some common features of a crisis. First of all, the situation materializes unexpectedly, so no one really knows what's going to happen out there. The event with the nuclear reactor in Japan, in Kobe, happened really unexpectedly, and after a earthquake hit the area. So everything, the situation materializes unexpectedly, and you don't really know what's going to happen. The second thing is that decisions, and this is actually what pertains this lecture, and you have to accept it, that decisions are required urgently. So you don't really have the time capability to have informed or to compare decision making with a business as usual context. So you have to take decisions quite in a short time. Then specific threats are identified. So you have very, very specific threats or perils or risks that you have to identify and you have to come up with. For example, where you have an issue at sea, you have a ship broken down in the middle of the ocean, then you have to prepare yourself for risk at sea, for humans being amidst an ocean, and you have to prepare yourself so that you can save those persons. No. Second thing is that there is also an urgent demand for information. So you have to collect information urgently, and you have to fuse information urgently and quickly and swiftly. There is a sense of losing control from all of those stakeholders that participate in this event. Pressures are building over time. Routine business, the business as usual scenario becomes increasingly difficult, so you cannot really operate as you operated before the crisis came up. Demands are made to identify someone to blame on. Outsiders take an unaccustomed interest, so everyone actually is having an opinion, and everyone is having his own share of or perception of why things happened, or even better, what should be done to improve post-crisis events. The reputation of the company will suffer, will be reduced, and the communications are very difficult to manage. So you have a lot of informational needs. You don't have the channels to fuse the information, to direct this information. However, people really want to get information. This information needs have different perspectives actually. In some cases, in some of those people that, in those cases that people want information are internal employees of the company that need information so that they can better focus on their reaction. In some other cases, those informational needs are from journalists or from the general public, or even from nosy people that really want to know what happened there, and maybe prepare themselves or do anything else to protect themselves. Now, we've discussed about what crisis is and what happens and what are the key features of crisis, but what crisis management is? How do we manage crisis? What do we do to manage the crisis? First of all, a short definition. Crisis management is the overall coordination of an organization's response to a crisis in an effective, timely manner, with the main objective being avoiding or minimizing the effect to the organization's profitability, reputation, or ability to operate. So it's this whole context of activities and... Sorry, guys. So, crisis management is this whole set of activities that are put in place so that the organization can respond to an unexpected event, with the greater objective of not affecting the business as usual, the profitability, the reputation, or even the ability to continue business. Crisis management involves identifying a crisis, planning a response to the crisis, and confronting and resolving the crisis. So it has a couple of different sets, families of activities, so that you can more effectively or more efficiently respond. Now, crisis management prevents a crisis from becoming a catastrophe. Of course, you're going to have crises in from your everyday life to your business life to your professional activities. However, the only way to prevent a small crisis or even a larger crisis to become a catastrophe is effectively managing this crisis. Crisis management is a system or a methodology or both of solving crisis situations. So we're going to see some of the approaches of crisis management. Actually, crisis management is putting together all the activities and all the persons that could undertake or would undertake solving of a crisis, amending the events, and of course communicating this situation to the company and to the people, to the persons that are affected directly or indirectly, that is the company stakeholders or the entire general public. Last but not least, crisis management is also a set of people assigned the responsibility to resolve problems through crisis situations. So, in this case, crisis management is all the persons that are assigned to specific groups like emergency response or hazmat groups or legal department or communications and PR experts and so on and so forth, that are assigned this responsibility to resolve problems when a crisis hits a company or an entity. By the way, we should all be aware that a crisis is like a virus. You don't really expect or you don't really know when the virus is gonna attack your immune system. However, the effects can be sudden, can be insidious, can be infectious, and in some cases it can be extremely dangerous if you don't take precautionary actions. Even if you have a cold or a sore throat, if you don't protect yourself from this sort of under quotes crisis, it might end up having a more impact on your situation, a stronger effect on your situation, and maybe even have a certain catastrophe within you. So you can all see that you really need to have a specific set of activities, a specific set of tasks, a specific set of procedures, training, and the persons that are needed so that you can resolve the crisis, the event or the issue that has come up with. Now, the objectives of crisis management. The first objective is to reduce tension during the incident. The second is to demonstrate corporate commitment and expertise, control the flow and accuracy of information, and manage resources effectively. So, crisis management is actually a combination of first putting all the people and all the tasks, the activities together so that they can resolve the crisis itself. For example, you have an oil spill and you have to put all the different teams, all the different groups together so that you can, for example, remedy the spill, contain the spill and so on and so forth. But you also have to have people ready to control the flow and accuracy of information that goes within the emergency groups and also outside the emergency groups. Let the general public know what's happening, and in this respect try to manage as effectively or as efficiently as possible the corporate resources so that everyone understands his role and responds to his role. Now, how crisis management works? The purpose is to prevent, of course, to survive and to have some successful outcomes. First of all, of course, when you have a crisis, the first objective is the prevention. In the case of oil spill that we're going to be using today, in the case of oil spill, you have to prevent the oil spill from the tanker or the LNG carrier from or whatever. Prevent this the spill from affecting the ecosystem, let's say, of the area. The second prevention is prevention of human losses. Actually, sorry to be politically incorrect, the first objective is the prevention of human losses, save as many lives as possible. The second is preventing the oil spill from harming the ecosystem, the environment, and so on and so forth. The second is the survival, of course, of the asset and of the company in general. Or if you have some personal injuries or personnel losses, try to make things happen to try to protect those people and survive as much as you can. And the last thing is to have successful outcomes. For example, save the cargo, or save the ship, save the asset, and all that stuff. Now, the key success factors. What are those factors that can protect or enable success or provide a good outcome in this case? First of all, the organizational capacity. Has it been restored? For example, the company, the asset, the ship itself. Is it okay? Is it there for the company to continue operations or not? Losses, have they been minimized? The losses, both in terms of human lives, but also in terms of profitability, of ecosystem level, of ecosystem protection. And last but not least, have the lessons been learned? Will we do the same mistakes again, or if we, in case we understand where the causes came from, will we make the same mistakes again, or the same issues? Will they be brought up again? Or did we learn the lesson there and we have put together all of those processes, all of those procedures that can help us or can protect us? And the last thing is communications. Are the communications effective? Do they address all the stakeholder groups out there, or or do they have a problem? Are they problematic? Now, crisis planning. The first thing is to assess risks. You have to assess the risk. What is the risk? What is the problem that the risk might affect? What are the problems to the standard operating procedures to the company, and so on and so forth. You have to produce plans, the standard operating procedures in case of a crisis that we discussed a while ago. You have to define roles and responsibilities. Who is responsible of doing what in a company? You have to appoint a very specific crisis management team that will be responsible to undertake all decision making and respond to all the issues effectively and with political or high level backup within the company. You have to draw up a certain communication plan. So in terms of when a crisis hits a company, you have to have a communication plan. What sort of information is released? Who gets the information? Why does he get this information? You have to produce, with respect especially to communication plan, but also with respect to the roles and the responsibilities, you have to produce an organizational chart that has contact information in there, so that no one really tries to look up for contact information once a crisis has hit and start asking around who's responsible or who should they contact and losing time in this respect. Another thing that you have to prepare yourselves and you have to address is promoting a crisis-ready culture. Unfortunately, up to now, most of the companies have a business as usual culture. That is, they don't really expect that a crisis is going to hit them. However, and actually all of the crisis so far has shown that a crisis will hit, or some sort of crisis will hit a company one way or the other. This is the reason why you have to have a crisis-ready culture within the company. Be ready for the unexpected, no matter how unexpected this is going to be. When I'm suggesting this crisis-ready culture, I don't really mean to take all the different precautionary measures and prepare yourselves for the worst case scenario. That's actually, as we discussed with the risk management approaches, that's actually a very expensive habit, a very expensive exercise for the company. The thing is to have a crisis-ready culture and to have some certain simple procedures out there so that you can really respond effectively and timely to the crisis. For example, know who's going to be the first person to reply to a call, or what are the legal procedures, or even have at the end of the day, and that's the suggestion for the small and medium-sized companies that we always give, have some contact details ready when a crisis happens. For example, in a small storage facility in a port, have the 911 or 100 or whatever, 122, depending on which country you're based on, police number, police emergency telephone number ready, or have some contact details of hazmat teams or inspection engineers and so on and so forth ready, as well as have some details, some contact details of legal support ready. So you can see that having a crisis ready culture, even for small items, not big enough. I mean, if you have a crisis, if you have storage facility, a small warehouse out there that has cold storage, have the contact details of the repairman ready. That's a small crisis, not a big crisis, but at the end of the day, that can really this crisis can really induce problems to the effective and the efficient operations of the company. So if you have the repairman's contact details ready, you will be able to contact him directly and ask for help or support or whatever. Even the computer help desk is a crisis-ready culture. I mean, if you have a business as usual scenario on your mind, and I don't know, your laptop or your computer, your desktop has a blue screen, you will not know what to do. If you have this helpline, this hotline details ready, you will be at least trying to respond to this crisis. Another thing is the plans and the training. So where do you have the plans? You may have plans ready, but if no one in your company knows about these plans, no one will be ready to respond according to what you have done so far. So you have to put the plans in an area, in a place that everyone can see them, everyone can access them, internally that is, and everyone can be made aware of what are the objectives and what are the procedures to manage the crisis. And of course, you have to organize regularly training with your employees so that you can let them know what the procedures are, what the situation are, and how they could respond to certain procedures. And last but not least, you have to test, review, and practice the plan. It doesn't matter if you have the best plan out there. If this best, under quotes, plan is not ready or is not fit for purpose for your company or for your context, it doesn't really matter how good this is. You have to test it. You have to see if it's fit for purpose, as I said, or if it's practical enough for your company. You have to review it and redo it in some cases. And you also have to practice yourselves. Now, some pre-crisis actions and preparations that you're going to be needing. First of all, crisis is actually, it's no time for you to find yourself on a learning curve. That is, you have to have everything ready. You don't have to start learning when a crisis has hit. You have to be prepared for the crisis. You have to build community measures and emergency procedures beforehand. Not only for emergency procedures, that is for your own company. For example, you have this oil spill example that we've discussed. You have some emergency procedures within your company, like the emergency task force, some hazmat groups that can react, and so on and so forth. But you also have to be prepared with respect to the greater community, the general public. You have to make them know that a crisis has hit so that they can prepare themselves. We've said so far that crisis may occur at any time, so you have to be prepared, irrespective of the time of the year or the specific time of the day the crisis hits. You have to be very, very prepared to follow the guidelines, follow the plan. Pre-crisis actions, although they are costly, they are usually a fraction of the cost of losses. No matter how you calculate those losses in terms of human lives, which is the ultimate good that we all have, or the profitability that the company loses, or even the branding, the image that the company has. So all of these costs are more expensive, are higher than the costs for preparing yourselves, putting the groups together, putting the task forces together, do training, let people know, make them aware of the situation, the greater community. So these are actions that should be borne by a company. Now, said that, we also have to make ourselves clear that we have to not underestimate the damage a crisis can do and the costs it can have. In most of the cases, people say that they are aware of the risks, they are aware of the crisis that may emerge out of this risk, and they are ready to accept the costs. Well, guess what? In most of the cases, these costs are underestimated. And said that, when a crisis hits, the companies are not really ready to undertake those costs. For example, issue crisis like the crisis that has the issues that have produced in a matter, in a case, the financial, the fiscal crisis in the US and in the European Union in 2007 and 2008 and 2009. Most of the companies that produced, if I could say so, this crisis, although they were ready, or they said they were ready to accept those crises and move on forward, history now shows that these companies were not ready, and this is why these companies have dissolved, or they have they have been broken down. So you can see that no one is really ready at the end of the day to undertake all the related costs, and everyone seems to be underestimating the actual costs that are going to be borne when a crisis hits. Now, some emergency procedures, we all have to have emergency procedures being set up and also be in place. The staff should be aware of the situation and should also be aware of the responses and the activities that they're going to be undertaking. You also have to have a network of experts built up beforehand so that you can have an expert opinion on an urgent matter quite quickly and quite swiftly. And of course, standard commission decisions, standard operating procedures have to be ready in all official languages spoken within the company or within the area that the company operates. Now, the crisis life cycle. In this case, most of the practitioners distinct the crisis life cycle in 3 stages. The first one, when the storm breaks. The stage 2, when the storm rages. And the third stage, when the storm passes. Now, when the storm breaks, the breaking of the crisis, you will understand that the crisis has broken when control seems to be slipping out of the company, when the company doesn't really have control over the events or over the actions, or this is what it seems. There is a lack of solid detail about the crisis. It's hard to provide information that is demanded by the media, the analysts, the stakeholders within the company, the stakeholders outside the company, and so on and so forth. And there is a large temptation to resort to a short-term focus, try to make things up quickly and close this thing down, but also escalating to panic and maybe some sort of speculation. For a period of time, everyone loses perspective in this. Now, spread and intensification of crisis. Second stage. In this stage, speculation and rumors develop in the absence of hard facts, and this is why you really need communication, proper communication within and outside the company. Regulators and other third parties add weight to the opinionate climate, and corporate management comes under intense scrutiny from internal and external groups. The third one, rebuilding needs. The third stage, you have to manage the reputation, the corporate reputation. There are opportunities in a crisis to build positive perceptions of the company or the product that could really last beyond the crisis period itself. For example, when you have a pro-crisis ready culture with your company, you can really bring this up and advise and let people know that the company is ready to respond to a crisis. The company has made all things available to respond to this crisis, and so on and so forth. Company communication culture. The company embarks on a long-term program to tackle management issues and communication problems that are exaggerated in crisis. And a key thought, key takeaway from this is that good crisis management is essential and should be there for all companies. Irrespective of what the company thinks or what the costs are, a good crisis management plan should be out there and should be readily made available to all those that need it. The thing is now that we always have to have a substitute for daily risk management processes, not approaching this on a very scientific way, but also on a more tacit or practitioner's way of doing things. Now, the LNG related risk management project, some ideas about the LNG risk management process and the crisis management. The sector's risk management process should focus on knowing what your product is. What are the limitations? What are the risks? What are the threats? The vulnerability in general of the product. It's a very peculiar product. It has a lot of threats that can put out there, and there are a lot of vulnerabilities in the supply chain of this product. Get to know to your product. Get to know to what this product can create, so that you can understand what the best approach will be in managing a risk, a crisis that might hit the company. Knowledge of stakeholders. There is a diverse set of stakeholders that are related with the LNG supply chain, the value chain. So you have to get to know to all of the different stakeholders, from the port authorities and the regulators to the company itself, the shipping line itself, the master, everyone on board the ship, the port terminal facility operator, which are also people that engage themselves in the energy supply chain, the buyers, the clients, the financial community, the insurers, the legal persons, and so on and so forth. So get to know all these different stakeholders and understand their needs and understand their problematic areas. The structure and documentation, you have to have a very clear structure and clearer documentation on how to respond to a crisis, and you have to make everyone aware of the not only the limitations but also the best approaches of tackling a crisis in the LNG supply chain. You have to have mitigation actions, predominantly of external risk, and you have to have, of course, all of this put together so that a successful crisis management plan is created and is made aware to all of the stakeholders. Why do we really need that? Now, despite the solid risk management process, there will be problems. So, no matter how good your risk management plan is, problematic areas will emerge one way or the other, or one day or the other. So, you have to have these crisis management approach, crisis management culture ready. Now, simply put, we cannot really predict all crisis events and protect against all of them. So we have to have some certain events being predicted for or protected against. And the next thing is to have a culture, a pro-crisis ready culture, so that even if we don't predict or we don't protect initially against all the crisis events, based on this culture, to be ready to quickly and swiftly take decisions against these crisis events. Now, we also have to be prepared to deal with a crisis event, no matter geographic area or scoping or time of the year and so on and so forth. And we have to be ready to take immediate actions to identify and assess issues and options and obtain expert advice as needed each time. Another thing is the crisis communications. Now, good communication is the centerpiece, the heart of any crisis management plan. Of course, the communications should aim to reduce the tension, to demonstrate a corporate commitment, to correct the problem and take control of the information flow. Now, the crisis communications involve communicating with a variety of constituents, the media, the employees within the company, neighbors, employees with other companies, investors, regulators, lawmakers, legal persons, judges, lawyers, so on and so forth, insurance community. There is a gazillion of different stakeholders that the crisis communication should address, and there is a gazillion of stakeholders that have to be addressed. Now, moving on forward, some practical examples. Actually, my perception, my point of view is that we have two main broad families of crises. Crises that are led by specific events that are coming up, and crises that are led by specific issues that are brought up. Now, event-led crisis. These crises may lead to loss of life or injury of people, harm and potential issues to the environment, to the ecosystem, damage to an asset or to a business general, and of course a huge impact on reputation. In these cases over here, I have a couple of accidents that happened in the maritime industry. For example, the top picture is the Erika incident, which really damaged quite heavily not only the company, the shipping company itself, but also the oil company, the shipper, and all of those related with shipping oil in that area. There are a lot of different emergencies, from well blowouts like the BP oil spill, which is the bottom right picture, in the Gulf of Mexico. There are pipeline emergency, marine vessel emergencies, plant emergencies, transport emergencies, security threats, and so on and so forth. So you're going to have a lot of different event-led crisis events to respond to. Now, event-led crisis involves major operational emergencies that may include multiple fatalities, extensive asset damage, or major oil spills. You may have aviation or marine disaster, or you may have terrorist attacks, or you may have all of the above, or any of the above with, of course, now going back to the communications issue, you may have hostile media and NGO interests that are against your company, or major public impact, or other using these issues, these incidents for their own agenda. So in all of these cases, you have to be prepared. You have to have some clear rules and some clear procedures on how to approach the crisis. I selected purposely the Maersk Alabama hijack, which kind of featured all of the previous items there. We had multiple fatalities, multiple injuries on people, extensive potentially asset damage. You have the ship loaded with containers out there, so the not only the cost of the ship but also the cost of the cargo was huge. The terrorist attack, and all of these were coupled with hostile media, well, not positively in any case affected media, and major public impact. And of course, a lot of other interest groups using this incident for their own agenda, from cutting on cargoes and business from the company to legislators wanting to pass specific laws and specific rules, lobbying groups trying to pass their own agenda, and so on and so forth. So you can see that you had a crisis hit with a lot of diverse events out there. Similarly, there is also the issue-led crisis. Some issues that are coming up, and you have to protect yourself. You have to prepare yourself. For example, environmental mismanagement. The company has put in place the environmental procedures and has put in place the ISO 14000 standards of quality assurance, but these are not the correct one, or these are not the highest standards that should be out there. And then crisis hits. People are coming there to inspect you and see what happened and why this is not the correct approach. Allegations of corruption, which was a very, very often issue in the media for the at least for the past 5-6 years post-crisis. Poor governance within the company, double standards. The company using other standards for operations in country A, for example, or other different standards for operations in country B, or different accounting standards in its case. Political instability, security problems. Now, particularly when these issues may lead to loss of stakeholder confidence, being targeted by media or NGOs, or having adverse public reaction, they should be carefully and promptly resolved so as not to produce a greater catastrophe. For example, if you have governance issues, you have to change governance, even if when this goes up to the hierarchy of the company. For example, the two issues that recently came up, the governance issues and the environmental mismanagement, led to the resignation of the Volkswagen CEO a couple of weeks ago. So you can see also that you don't have a single issue out there. The issues are at least bundled, if not 2 or 3 or 4 or even more issues popping up, coming up. This means that you have to have effective operations, effective procedures to resolve these crisis issues, these crises coming up. Now, the life cycle of the crisis. We have the pre-crisis, the acute crisis, the chronic crisis, and the crisis resolution. So, in the beginning, we have an incident coming up, which is a matter of minutes after the crisis has hit. In the second stage, you have some emergency response from a couple of hours after the crisis has hit to a matter of days. So this is the main phase of the crisis, when acute crisis, in some of the cases, if the crisis is prolonged to a chronic crisis, these are the emergencies that have to be remedied, they have to be controlled. And again, going back, when we have the crisis being prolonged enough, we have some chronic crisis, and until the crisis is resolved, is resolute, with also actions pertaining emergency recovery. All of these are the corporate crisis life cycle. It can take from a couple of minutes up to months after the issue has been resolved. For example, small crisis could take some minutes. Larger crisis, especially problematic events, large events like the I don't know, the nuclear spillover in Japan in 2013, or similar activities, or even the Lehman Brothers issue. These took years to be resolved. However, you may also have a smaller crisis, like, I don't know, a small fire in the port facility that we are using. It can be resolved in a matter of hours or in a matter of minutes. In any case, each activity has, each crisis has its own attributes, its own characteristics, and you have to respond differently in those cases. Now, emergency response and crisis, how can you organize these? Again, depending on what the crisis, the specific crisis attributes are, you might be able to resolve it on your own. However, if the crisis is large enough or the consequences are large enough, then you also have to have the government in its various forms, that is, assisting you. Now, the senior management has addressed this by putting together a crisis management group, and then with the emergency coordination team and the field management team, they are addressing operationally and they are responding operationally in this crisis. Now, on-site emergency organization, a small organizational chart of what the on-site group should consist of, or who should be responsible for what. You have to have one single on-scene commander, and actually the idea is to have only one that is going to be commanding the scene of the crisis. Why? Well, if you have more than one, then who's going to be taking decisions? The first or the second, or the nth? So you don't really want to mess things up. Have a single point of contact, single point of decision making. You should also be aware that all of the decisions should be taken in a timely manner, and you don't really have that much or that ample time to take decisions. Now, the emergency unit should consist of the emergency response team and the process control team, the asset protection team, the hazmat team, the muster team, medical team maybe, psychological support team, and legal team. Now, that was on the operational level of the company. Now, on the corporate level, it has a similar layout, but on a higher level on the corporate hierarchy. And actually, the on-scene commander should respond directly to the CEO, to the crisis manager. In these cases, the crisis manager should always be the managing director or the CEO or the chairman of the company, especially when it comes to very important, very strong crisis events. Then the CEO himself should be the crisis manager. He could also, or she could also be helped, supported by the security director of the company, the legal director, the government affairs director, external affairs and communication affairs, the HR director, the emergency coordinator, and the finance director. Again, this is a practitioner's point of view of the corporate level emergency response team. In each case is a different case. Each company is a different entity on its own. So these two slides should be parameterized to the company itself. For example, SMEs are quite different than large corporations. Then large corporations in the shipping industry are quite different than large corporations in the banking industry, and so on and so forth. So in each and every case, you have to focus on the specific context, and you have to produce a fit for purpose layout, organizational layout. Now, what is the site response activities? First of all, you have to detect and alert everyone. You have to gain on-site control. You have to mitigate off-site effects. You have to address all the casualties and evacuate if necessary, which means that you have to recover, or you have to recover the area, or you have to completely shut down the entire area. So that's the command and control team responsibility. The incident management team that is taking up the emergency management. The first, of course, is to mobilize and set the team up. The second is to be aware of what is happening, and of course what is needed both on site and off site. They then are responsible to get everything, all the necessary items there, and they also have to address the casualties and maybe the evacuees, the community of evacuees, either internally, if the problem is limited, is constrained within the company, or the external community, the external stakeholders, for example, in the case of the nuclear spillovers in Japan. Now, involves stakeholders, the relatives, the community, the government, media, and so on and so forth. They also have to be addressed by the emergency management team. And when the emergency is over, clean up and investigate what happened. Now, the crisis management team support needs, all the needs of the site response and the emergency management, assembles information, recognizes the issues and the stakeholder analysis, develops the technical and implements the technical strategy and the communication strategy and implements them, gives feedback, resolutes the incident, the crisis, and monitors the event. Now, some principles of commanding and controlling the crisis event. Again, from the practitioner's point of view, it's the C4I principle, which includes commanding, controlling, communicating, having all the necessary equipment by using computers and information gathering devices, and also produce intelligence, that is, transform data into information and make this information as much as appropriate, as fit for purpose for all those persons that will be taking decisions. Now, tactical responses, emergencies, of course in the command and control thing, the emergencies are handled safely and effectively when responders are dependent on a predetermined and approved system for managing the event. So again, going back to what we said before, you have to have a crisis plan ready with all the different elements in there. Now, crisis management should also follow risk management principles. Actually, this is what we've said before. Crisis management usually come after the risk management has failed, in a sense. And some steps that can help you with the tactical response. First, you have to identify the problem. You have to manage and control the site. You have to evaluate the hazards and the risks. You have to assign and prepare the personnel. You have to inform management and coordinate the resources. Implement response objectives. Maybe decontaminate and clean up operations. And last but not least, terminate the incident. Again, hand in hand to what we said before, the crisis communications and the overall strategy for crisis communications. The first is you have to identify the audiences and the interests. You have to assemble the information, assess the position and identify the questions that you're going to be asked, choose the medium and the spokesman, get the message out, and listen to the audience and answer the concerns that the audience may have. So in this context, in this approach, in this framework, you have to identify the type and the importance of the audience. You have to identify the specific context, the specific attributes, the specific characteristics of the company, of the incident, and the impact the incident will have on the company. You have to assess the position. Who's responsible in the company? Is the company on the okay side? Or can we help and can we amend things? Can we make things better? Now, who's gonna get the message? Who's gonna be delivered the message and how? Some competence and training before going out to with the message. And of course, listen to the audience. That's the most crucial thing. Trying to listen to the audience and trying to answer the concerns that the audience may have. Now, with respect again, with the shipping related crisis, the resource that you're going to have, the main resource, is the ISPS, the International Code for Security of Ships and Port Facilities. This code has a lot of security assessments in there, and it has a clear view on how security should be assessed. It addresses the issues of security officers. It addresses the issues of training and of exercises. And of course, it is a process to be certified against the standards that it brings up, the ISPS code brings up, for both ports and ships. Now, in addition to that, the international maritime law is also a good resource to address crises. Marine safety and pollution is also a very, very specific but very important issue in crisis management. Most of the cases pertinent to the shipping industry are environmentally related. Now, most of the UN conventions you are probably aware of, the SOLAS Convention, the STCW Convention, the MARPOL Convention, the OPRC in the US, the Civil Liability of Oil Pollution Damage of 69, and so on and so forth. You can find those resources even online, most of them, and you can go through these resources so that you can understand the framework that you will be engaging in, so that you can prepare a crisis response manual, a crisis response plan, a crisis plan, so that you can more effectively prepare the company, prepare yourselves for a crisis. Now, that's the end of this session. I don't know if you have any questions or any issues. Okay, great. Now, I'm gonna have a break. Fortunately or unfortunately, I took it consecutively, the entire course, so we finished a little bit earlier because we summed up all the breaks that we had. So the next session is going to start at 12:45. Mr. Stiliadis, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in. You can either post them here or you can send them with an email to me. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. See you later. Bye-bye.